Respect for the earth, respect for the water, respect for the Creator, respect for life itself.
As the purple sunset fades, are we really here alone? On the main street of the world, relocated from our homes, and all that's real seems so far away. Sacrificing tomorrow for yesterday. There's a heartbeat louder than thunder. Revolution.
Yeah, so what you're listening to there, first you heard a clip from Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, which is, I think was out in 2007. And then Heartbeat by Robbie Romero. Check it out. Go to YouTube. There's a ton of really great songs about the importance of taking care of the earth and the jobs that we were supposed to be entrusted with when it comes to taking care of Mother Earth and the Earth Mother. Absolutely, without question. But yes, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, a very excellent movie. Has Adam Beach in it, as a matter of fact. But anyway, so back to the topic. And I didn't get to download the teleprompter anyway, so I'm going to have to do that at another time and just skim my way through this. But earlier I was talking about thinking without the box and pointed out what the cavalry is to this country's first people, the indigenous people, what the white way is. The cavalry exists in many forms. Its sole purpose is to divide and conquer, leading ultimately to the planned genocide of its indigenous people. Now, at Pine Ridge, back in the day, just as the people were trying to settle on land that could not produce crops, some natives were appointed as police officers to control the people, to become a police officer of their own people. But as things that involve humanity, as all things, they too, these native officers, became, and I'm going to use a term here coined by David Mitchell, an author of the most eye-opening book, later made into a film, in which Tom Hanks, Halle Berry, Hugo Weaving from the Matrix films give what I believe to be their greatest performances ever. This film, in fact, from 2012, directed by Lana and Lily Wachowski, who also directed the Matrix films, had their hand in the Matrix there too. And for anyone who sees Matrix for the veil-thinning, mind-expanding glimpse into human nature, and you know, us versus the machine, then prepare to be amazed beyond compare, as this film, Cloud Atlas, does this and more. It's all-encompassing. By now, I have seen this film well over 200 times. This is not counting the times I watch it as I'm going to sleep at night, because it creeps into your dreams, and you're taken on a journey that my words fall entirely too short to describe. But yeah, well over 200 times I've seen Cloud Atlas, and I've told many, many friends about this. And I'm still gaining perspective from this film. I mean, I'm still gaining, and learning. There's something new every time. The detail. I mean, Cloud Atlas, the film, almost wasn't even made. In fact, Tom Hanks went, I can't remember where they started filming. I think Prague. Everybody goes to Prague and starts there. But he believed in the script and the film and the story so much that he began to put up his own money to coerce the studio into saying, yes, look, you've got to do this. Now, I have no idea what the box office, I don't know what it drew, what it made, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Because what you get from this movie, and ironically, they discuss the energy crisis. I don't want to give it away. I really would like you to, I would really like you to check it out and then tell me what you think. But anyway, I need to get back on topic. So, again, Native Americans, as they are placed into the position of police officers back in the day, late 1800s there, mid to late 1800s, they become empowered. They are human. Thus turning, members of one nation into two. You had those who were empowered by the money to buy things, and money is the ultimate form of slavery. It absolutely is. So these natives who become police officers turn in their own people, go against their own people. This is the divide and conquer. Dividing again and again the people by forcing the white way upon them. Forcing them to live on a land that could not provide food. Forcing them to live into starvation ultimately by hunting. But the whites hunted the game for sport instead of the food and tools it was meant to be for the first people. I mean, they literally robbed, their livelihood, among other things. This is not even talking about the kidnapping of children from different nations, forcing them into boarding schools where they were raped, murdered, beaten, and all forms of molestation, beaten for speaking the only language they ever knew. This is what the government did. And I in the last show I did, I actually talked about how the Catholic Church apologized for their hand in the Rwandan genocide. Apologizes because, allegedly, priests and some nuns literally had hands in the murdering of 800,000, almost 1 million people in that country. As many as 10,000 people were murdered in a day with clubs and machetes. But like I always said, where was the United States while this was going on? 16 days after these murders began in Rwanda, Bill Clinton knew. He received daily updates. 16 days after it began, people here were already calling it a genocide. They already knew what was happening. They knew what was happening over there. But see, why didn't we intervene? Because the only black gold that comes out of Rwanda is tea and coffee. That's not what we were looking for. It never is. Now, and going back to the Native Americans, the issue here. We're talking about Standing Rock. But what this allowed, this separation, this divide and conquer tactic they were doing, and still do, what this allowed was for the government to, quote, take care of the Native Americans. What does this entail? Well, for the United States, it meant making sure to give them tainted food and blankets and clothing from people who died of smallpox and hepatitis, among other diseases. In fact, Sir Geoffrey Amherst, a commander of British forces in North America, wrote on July 7th of 1763 at Fort Pitt, quote, "Could it not be contrived to send the smallpox among those disaffected tribes of Indians, we must, on this occasion, use every strategy in our power to reduce them." Roughly a week later, he wrote, "You will do well to try to inoculate the Indians by means of blankets, as well as to try every other method that can serve to extirpate this execrable race." You can read this at a very enlightening article at history.org, an article entitled Colonial Germ Warfare by Harold B. Gill, Jr. It's very enlightening, and I actually meant to discuss that and pull that article before, but I didn't. But I'm quoting, and it is nothing new. It's absolutely nothing new. But to show, but to say that there's documentation that proves that yes, the United States engaged in genocide. I mean, if you read Hitler's book, My Life, Mein Kampf, he actually praises the United States at that time. He praises and uses them as an inspiration to what he did to the Jews. How does it feel to know that you live in a country where Hitler has left a book behind that says, "Thank you, United States, for inspiring me to engage the Holocaust"? How does that feel? But again, I return to discussing this concept of the cavalry. You see, right now, police officers from at least 6 states have converged on the Sioux at Standing Rock. And it's not just the Sioux, because over 100 nations have come together to protest this pipeline. 100 nations. This is the largest convergence of Native Americans on this continent since the late 1800s. What we need to do is pay attention to what's going on. This is this generation's Wounded Knee. It absolutely is. And if you don't quite understand the Wounded Knee, and I'm not talking about the December 29th, in which the massacre occurred. I'm talking about in 1971, 1972. I'm talking about that Wounded Knee. But all these cops have come from at least 6 states to converge here, in full military gear and weaponry. They have more body armor than I've seen on photos of soldiers in the fields in Syria or Afghanistan, or you name it, because the United States has to be at war with everybody. See, there's a camaraderie among servicemen and women. Today's members of, say, the National Guard, who were called to come and attack the water protectors, as well as the police officers, there's a camaraderie. As many veterans return to this country after their tours of duty and find employment, usually in the form of public service like security officers or police, because this is what they were trained to do. They were trained to do this. Honestly, a police officer has a more dangerous job than a soldier over in you name it, in my opinion. And it's worse because they have to do this to their own people. The paradox here, and that will begin to open, especially starting on Monday. The paradox here is, as again, this very weekend, at least 2,000 veterans, as I mentioned earlier, are descending on Standing Rock to, quote, lock arms and form a human shield around the protesters. That is a hell of a statement. To form a human shield. So I'm wondering what will happen when the local police of today, those who are all converged there to force the protesters out. What is going to happen when they must face off with veterans who served in whatever war? Again, that camaraderie is going to be tested, because these cops are doing their job because they're getting paid. I mean, Governor Dalrymple said months ago that to combat the protesters, peaceful protesters, mind you, peaceful protesters, they were having to dip into the emergency funds of the state, which meant they're not going to be able to, supply the emergency snow removal and all the little winter things that are going to go on, because they had to pay so much money in overtime for these cops to stand there and watch people stand there in protest. But what the media is going to do, they're going to keep telling you and I the negative side of this. They're trying to turn us against the Native Americans by saying they are costing us a ton of money because they're trying to save the earth. You know that thing we live on, that thing that gives us life, that we have to